Suction dredges do not add pollutants, but instead we safely remove most heavy pollutants already in the water at no cost to the public. Mr. Green showed a slide with a lot of trash and garbage that was cleaned up out of a claim down in California. This year we have a record, it was put up on Facebook, of some miners on the Umpqua River, which is kind of in central western Oregon. And I don't remember, it was over 400 pounds of lead from fishing were recovered in less than a week. And the picture is, I wish I had it, it's fantastic. It shows a typical park-type picnic table, and you really can't even see the picnic table. They put all this lead that they gathered and just piled it on the picnic table until you can't even see it anymore. So we do recover a lot in places, especially where fishing is popular, and I'm not trying to, I'm from Minnesota originally, I like to fish just as much as the next guy, but it always puzzled me, why do they get to throw lead in the water and we're not allowed to remove it? Section 402 only applies to waters of the United States, which are defined by the EPA as the navigable waters at the time of statehood. I mentioned this more in my written testimony that I believe you've all got a copy of in more detail. I did not go heavily into this issue of navigable waters, but as the legislature of the state of Idaho, you may want to. The reason I didn't go into it is because there are multiple court decisions that the whole issue is highly confusing. The federal government is pretending as though all waters in the states, not just Idaho, belong to them. So I asked the question, are all waters in Idaho waters of the United States, or are they waters of the state of Idaho? Now the Army Corps has a different definition for waters of the United States. I didn't include it either because it takes about 3 pages, and it deals with the Commerce Act, interstate commerce, international commerce, things like that. It's mostly for transportation purposes. Many of the smaller streams that we mine in, nobody's floating. The dredge won't even float until you move rocks out of the way. The water isn't deep enough. There is no transport. These aren't navigable by any normal meaning of the word. Then we have the congressional intent of the Clean Water Act. This came from, I believe, 1977. Senator Muskie at the time might have been, at least he was heavily involved with it, and the quote from him is, "The bill tries to free from the threat of regulation those kinds of man-made activities which are sufficiently de minimis as to merit general attention at the state and local level and little or no attention at the national level." So here we have 1 or 2 little suction dredge miners that are just minding their own business and want to go out and supplement their income, maybe it's their primary source of income. They're relatively insignificant what we're doing. The Army Corps for years refuses to permit us because they've already ruled us as de minimis. They say a 4-inch dredge and smaller is totally de minimis and does not need permitting by them just because it's a waste of everybody's time. This might help this body, this legislative body, in that in the Clean Water Act, under 33 U.S.C. 1370, I'm going to just jump past this. It just says, except as expressly provided in the chapter, nothing in this chapter shall, 1, preclude or deny the right of any state to adopt or enforce any standard or limitation respecting discharges of pollutants. The more important one is this number 2, be construed as impairing or in any manner affecting any right or jurisdiction of the states with respect to the waters, including boundary waters, of such states. So even under the Clean Water Act, they recognize that the actual control of these waters should be under the state. The state can come up with its own whatever limitation or regulation is required to make sure that there is no significant harm occurring to the environment. It does not need the federal agency from Seattle coming in here with their, as we've seen up in Alaska recently, jackbooted thugs in SWAT uniforms to worry about somebody getting the water a little muddy. Okay. And this is just the last slide, just to give you an idea of the scale. I've got a dredge number 51, which would typically be used to dredge out harbors and navigational channels and, you know, like the Columbia River and some of the larger waterways. And if you notice, sitting next to the bucket, as close to scale as I could get, it represents a 4-inch dredge. The whole machine would fit inside that bucket. With one scoop of that bucket is going to move more material than that dredge is going to move in 8 hours. And yet, that big dredge operates under 404, not NPDES permitting. And I thank this committee. Thank you very much.